When it comes to electric vehicles, here in the United States at least, SUVs reign supreme. And that's why it's probably no surprise why behind me you can see a Tesla Model X and a Rivian R1S. Both of these electric SUVs are extremely popular, and a lot of that is because the size of the vehicle. Of course, we in the United States are used to even larger SUVs than these two, but for electric vehicles for quite some time, this is about as big as you can get. Now, of course, the Model X has been around for quite some time. We did, however, have a refresh a few years ago, so it is fresh, at least on the inside. The exterior had some minor updates, but overall, most people would look at the new Model X and the old one and say they're about the same, and they wouldn't be wrong until they get on the inside. Now, of course, the R1S is the newcomer here. This has not been on the market that long, and just until recently, you couldn't even get one if you wanted to order one right away. Now, you can, in some cases, find some in inventory across the United States, and a lot of that has to do with the economy and the market that we're looking at right now, which is high interest rates, and very expensive vehicles are not popular when it's very expensive to borrow money. That said, these two vehicles are very similar in volume, and they are both probably on the same list of most people. If you're considering a Model X, you're probably thinking about an R1S. If you're considering an R1S, you're probably thinking about a Model X. They are both very similar in a number of areas, and the real question is, which one is best? Which one should you get? We're gonna try to answer that question today and really talk about the difference of both of these vehicles, because quite honestly, both of these are solid choices. The first and, in my opinion, most important aspect of a vehicle purchase is price. And that's where we're gonna start here. Of course, if you are looking at a Model X or an R1S, you're already looking at above $70,000. You're looking at a big price tag. So the difference between these two is probably not going to be that big of a deal. But starting price, $75,000 over here and about $78,000 over here. There's a big difference, however, in what that starting price gets you. $75,000 is the standard range dual motor Rivian R1S at 270 miles of rated range. For Rivian, that's a very small battery pack and not a lot of range. Model X, on the other hand, only comes in two configurations, so that cheapest $78,000 version comes with 335 miles of range. Now, you're talking about dual motor for both of these, and 335 miles of range versus 270 is a big difference. Also, 0 to 60, 4.5 seconds versus 3.8. That's kind of a lot. And the thing is, you should probably seriously consider the new Standard Range Plus version of the R1S if you're going to look at the bottom trim. For right about $2,000, you're actually going to get 315 miles of range. So you'll be over that 300-mile range threshold, meaning it's only about 20 miles less rated range than the Model X. So these are much closer in range if you look at it that way. And that means $78,000 here, $78,000 here. So pretty much spot on with each other. Now the difference is tax credits. You have $3,750 in tax credits available on the R1S and the full $7,500 on the Model X. Now, you're not going to be able to add much more than what we're talking about right now. A Standard Range Plus, R1S, or a Model X with no major changes. You only have about $2,000 to work with, and that means you can change a color maybe on the Model X, and very few changes here, maybe a color as well on the R1S. That'll keep you in tax credit eligibility. After that, you lose tax credit eligibility. Now, the biggest difference, though, the R1S comes standard with 7 seats. The Model X comes standard with 5 seats, and that is a huge difference when you're looking on paper at the difference between two SUVs. Having seating capacity for 7 versus 5 is a big difference, and that makes these two very different SUVs. Of course, you can add the 7-seat configuration to the Model X, but unfortunately, that is a $3,500 option, meaning it is no longer eligible for tax credits. So not only does the price go up, but you also lose $7,500. So in reality, it's like an $11,000 upgrade, not just that $3,500. Unless, of course, you don't qualify for the tax credit anyways, then it doesn't matter. But that $3,500 does bring this one up to $81,500. So $78,000 for standard range plus, $81,500 over here for a 7-passenger Model X. Now we're starting to see some of these difference. There's a $3,500 difference between the two, plus that tax credit. So $7,500 gone here. You still have that $3,750 over here. But enough about those tax credits. Forget that for a minute. We're here to talk about the good stuff, performance. You want the best you can get, the most range, the best performance. How do these two stack up? There's actually a lot of really good things going on with both of these vehicles back here. Of course, when it comes to performance, the Model X Plaid you've very likely heard of, 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, 326 miles of range, 6-seat configuration only, and comes in at $91,490. A lot of performance, a lot of car for $91,500. Considering to get that kind of performance in anything else, you're talking a lot more money than that. Over here on the R1S, you actually have an intermediate trim before you get to the full performance, and that is their performance version, which, follow me here, it's gonna sound a little confusing, but their performance version is not actually their best performance car. The performance version gets you 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, comes with 3 battery configuration options, the standard range plus, large or max, so 315, 352 miles or 400, and starts at 83,000, 89,000, and 99,000. So basically we're talking $5,000 to upgrade from the dual motor R1S to the performance R1S. Now, the actual top performance R1S is actually called the quad motor, and that has 4 motors, unlike the 3 in the Model X. That'll get you 0 to 60 in 3 seconds and only comes in 1 battery pack at 321 miles of rated range in the large pack. Now, this 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, 321 miles versus 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds and 326 miles of range, $92,000, $91,490. So price-wise, it's very similar, and it's only recently that the Model X is actually $500 cheaper than the R1S version, but very similar performance characteristics, except the 0 to 60, half a second is a lot in this level of performance. That is where the Model X gets you a little bit more, but you have 7 seats instead of 6 over here, and honestly, the interior space is a little bit larger over on the R1S. Speaking of interior space, a lot of people say that the R1S is significantly bigger than the Model X. And while on the inside there are dimensions that are larger, exterior, they're actually very similar in size. The length, we're talking 3 inches. The width, another 3 inches, and the width is actually way more valuable than the length. And then for height, obviously we have an off-road stance versus a more road-driven performance stance on the Model X. Both have air suspension so we can raise and lower, but dimensionally, they're very similar in size. On the inside, you do get more space, and it is because of the box shape of the R1S versus that teardrop traditional Tesla shape of the Model X. Now, here's where Tesla has traditionally shined above all others, and that is the case here as well. Although you do have the ability to get quite a bit more range in the R1S than you do the Model X, this comes with Tesla's charging network. Now, that said, Rivian now has access to many of Tesla's V3 250 kilowatt chargers across the United States, which is fantastic news for Rivian owners. Of course, you have to have an adapter, but with that adapter, it is truly plug and play, which changes everything. It is super convenient. You no longer have to rely on the unreliable public charging network here in the States, and it is very expensive compared to the upcharge you pay using Tesla's network. That is a huge game changer for people considering a Rivian R1S. Until this year, that was not possible. Now, that's not all there is to this story. Of course, now they both can use Tesla's charging network. The Model X can use all chargers. This is limited to only V3s, but quite honestly, you don't want to go to a V2 anyways if you can avoid it. But the other difference here in charging is charging speed. As a matter of fact, when Tesla refreshed the Model X and the Model S, they actually put a lot of R&D into the old format battery. So it's the same size format battery, but a lot went into cooling and charging enhancements. The Model X now charges very fast, and the Model S, which has the same batteries and same charging as the Model X, will get you more range per minute of charging than any other Tesla. We're talking 200 miles of rated range in 15 minutes, and that is compared to 140 miles of range in 20 minutes. So 5 minutes more, 60 less miles of rated range in charging. This is nothing new. This is well known that the Rivian does not have the best charging curve, and it can at times be finicky and jump around a bit. So over here on the Model X, we're talking in 15 minutes, 200 miles of rated range. In 20 minutes, we can get 140 miles of rated range in the R1S. There's a huge difference. 5 more minutes to go 60 less miles in charge. This is nothing new. This is known. And Rivian, quite honestly, their charging curve has never been anything to really write home about. Now, a lot of this has to do with software and battery tech, and this is where Tesla continues to lead the charge, at least on the whole. Now, there are some other manufacturers now who are bringing out next generation batteries that are charging even faster and better than the Teslas, of course, but for reliability and repeatability, the Model X clearly is the winner here for charging on these two behind me. So wrapping that all up, we have two very popular SUVs here, two very awesome options to consider. How do you decide? Well, as of right now, pricing is very similar. If you're going for the maximum performance, obviously you cannot beat the Plaid Model X. 2.5 seconds 0 to 60 is insane. So if you're going for the fastest, quickest, best performing SUV out there, the Model X Plaid is your choice. If you're going for the most cost effective, you can actually get an R1S for $75,000 minus $3,750. But the thing is, if you get the base dual motor Model X, you get the $7,500 tax credit. So it's actually cheaper to get a dual motor with 335 rated miles of range. So on the bottom end, I would say the Model X also. However, if you need those extra seats, that changes everything. Tax credits go out the window. You cannot get a Model X with more than 5 seats with that tax credit. So as soon as you add those 7 seats, you're at $81,500. You get 7 seats for $75,000 minus $3,750 in tax credits over here. Now, stepping up to the standard range plus, you're still gonna get that $3,750. You're at $78,000 minus $3,750. So the R1S might be the better option here if you're really needing those 7 seats. However, 6-seat configuration is very popular because it's very convenient if you have kids in and out of the vehicle. Accessing that third row is so much easier with 6 seats, so that's why it's so popular. If you prefer the 6-seat configuration, you can't get that in an R1S. So again, the Model X would be your choice. Either way you go, the last really big difference to talk about between these two vehicles is performance off the road. Of course, the Model X can do some light duty off-road, but nothing compared to what the R1S can. So if you are an adventure seeker and you find yourself off the beaten path on trails, camping out in the wilderness, obviously the R1S is going to be a way better bet to not leave you stranded. The Model X is not built for that kind of performance. It can do some light work, but it's not going to do anything like the R1S can, obviously. So here's the thing. Since Rivian now has access to Tesla's supercharging network, you really cannot go wrong with either of these. Before it had access to that supercharging network, it'd really be hard to say jump right on to an $80,000 SUV that can't charge on reliable chargers if you go across the country. I've done it myself in an R1T coast to coast, and it was not fun. It was expensive too. But now that it has access to Tesla's supercharging network, you have access to reliable chargers, you have access to many chargers, and you have access to affordable charging. The R1S now has so much more going for it than it did just a year ago. So really, you can't go wrong with either. If you are looking for the best performance, Model X Plaid, hands down. If you're looking for something to take you off the beaten path, take you on an adventure off-road, the R1S. If you're looking for the cheapest, the base Model X. So you can't really go wrong either way. If you have to have 7 seats and you're already stretching your budget, the R1S. So our configuration is a dual motor, 6-passenger, and that's what we like the most, is that 6-passenger interior. It is super convenient for us. We can get away with 6 seats and not having 7. So if you have to have that 7th seat, that's obviously not gonna work for you. You'd have to get the 7-seat Model X or the Rivian R1S. So honestly, we're talking about the top of the market here. Both of these vehicles are very premium. They come with a premium price tag. There's a lot of value for that money, no question, but affordability continues to be an issue, obviously, and we're finally starting to see some other options hit the market. The Kia is the first thing that comes to mind. It's still kind of pricey in my opinion, but it starts in the 50s, which is a huge difference. So that 7-seat SUV is a nice contender for those who cannot quite stretch it to where this R1S or the Model X are. So we're finally starting to get more affordable options on the market, but for now, these two reign supreme and there's no question on why. So to answer the question, which one of these two should I pick? Well, I think it all depends on your lifestyle and you'll know for yourself which one's gonna fit you best. You cannot go wrong with either of these SUVs, and that's the point. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.